I'd like to dedicate this afternoon's talk to the late Elizabeth Watson and Richard Strathy. I'd also like to dedicate it to Tom Broad of Town Yetholm, who instigated the whole Cross-Border Archaeological Project back in 2011, and of course dedicated to all those ACFA and BAS members who came out in snow, hail, rain and wind to survey over the years. I should also point out that ACFA's got a new name. We used to be called the Association of Certificated Field Archaeologists, but the certificate course at University of Glasgow disappeared a good number of years ago. So we're open to all anyone's interested in archaeology. The title, Phrenological Fortunes, well, the phrenologists would massage the human skull to find diagnostic lumps and bumps. We massage the landscape looking for diagnostic lumps and bumps to try and interpret past human activity. I don't know if I'm stretching that analogy a wee bit much. Right, if I get the right one. Yeah, Halter Valley sits right on the Scotland-England border. Part of the survey is in actual fact within England itself. Just southeast of Edinburgh. It's snuggled between Lomond Water and the College Burn valleys. We divided the survey area into 4 sections. You can see the Shotton Hill, Thompson's Walls Farm, both in England, Yetholm Mains Farm, which we've just completed, and Halter Head Farm. Halter Head Farm and Shotton Hill reports have been published, the other 2 hopefully in the spring. It's a lovely valley, and unfortunately it doesn't show up. The laser is not going to show you the watershed, but here we are. We're looking up the valley, and the top of the valley has been quite undisturbed over the years. Apart from the group of trees there's a ruin called Old Halter Head Farm. So there's been quite a bit of farming or agricultural activity around about it. Unfortunately, there was a big tree plantation project as part of carbon capture back in the early noughties, I think it was, which has taken up, you can see the very rough area around the stream going up the slope, and it's destroyed completely a prehistoric settlement, plus other bits and pieces that we came across. A real shame. Just to show you what the habitation, what's been going on in the past. The bottom of the screen is the source of the Halter Burn. You'll see Halter Burn Head ruin there, Halter Burn Head Farm, which is the current farm, and there's been quite a lot of settlement over the millennia. There's a nice group of blue triangles down there, which are unenclosed platforms likely to be Bronze Age, and beside it there's a keist and a medieval house platform and enclosure. So it's been well occupied in the past. Here we are at the south end of, sorry, I keep my directions mixed up. The north end of the valley, looking up the valley. Richard Carleton has been directing some excavations in the floor of the valley there, and he's come across what he thinks is an old mill site, which is quite interesting. You can see the fields here. I call them manicured. They've been well ploughed out. So there's not much evidence of any past archaeology there. What I did notice when I was preparing this presentation is, I'll just reach down, a lovely dark semicircle. So I looked in the aerial photographs, and sure enough, you can just make out a large circular feature. So I had to add that into the report and had to adjust all the feature numbers in the report. So which is a bit of a pain, but never mind. Right, you can go on. Here we are in sort of mid part of the valley. The hills at the top are in England. That's part of the watershed. That's Coldsmouth Hill. Shotton Hill on the left. That report's being published. There's a nice wee ruin almost in the centre of the image. It's one of only 2 ruins, upstanding ruins that we surveyed. It's called Halflands, or Halfway House. It apparently was in the past. The method we used is totally opposite of what you've heard this morning. It's all the fancy gear. It's tape offset. Cheap, easily carried out, and very sociable. We're going to have a good chat while we're doing it. So in the field, we measure up and produce a field drawing. It's taken home and inked up, scanned, and inserted into the report. Here's an example. Here we've got a wee enclosure and yard, house, a couple of ancillary buildings to either side. Here it is in the field. I don't have the laser to point it out, but the top ranging pole is the top of the yard. The bottom ranging pole is more or less in the house. And it illustrates the biggest obstacle in field walking is the height of vegetation. 2016, when we did a recce, we walked over here and saw nothing. A few years later, we're back, and our good friends, the sheep, had nibbled the grass. The range of features. Well, we've got a kist. It's been robbed out. It's been a nice little mound. We've got another 3 which are untouched. The robbed out. Here it is here at the bottom of the image. It's beside a medieval house platform. So the medieval house platform, the medieval builders have obviously robbed out the kist to create their house platform. And so it goes. We've got another medieval house platform further down. They're always associated with enclosures. The enclosures off to the right there. This is us looking down the valley. The hill at the top there is in England. That's right, Coldsmouth Hill. Yeah, that's right. Let's get my bearings. Notoriously difficult to photograph without drones are unenclosed platforms, which we usually associate with the Bronze Age, as I said. This one's quite nice here because it's got a nice stone revetment along the front. See that where the ranging pole is. But we've got some really nice examples further up, but unfortunately difficult to photograph without a drone. This is a particularly interesting one because it's got little stone settings, 2 or 3 stone settings, a little scoop, and a nice stone revetment. We've got a few enclosed platform sites. This one I regret we didn't draw up, unfortunately. It was drawn by the Royal Commission, who were in the valley just prior to and just after the Second World War. They didn't draw everything, but they certainly described a lot of the main features in the valley itself. They described it as, what was it, mutilated by stone robbing, which I thought was a nice title for an archaeology book, actually. I thought of it first. Here's another example of the sites that the Commission described, but they didn't draw up, so we drew it up. It's difficult to work out what's actually there, but there seems to be a number of platforms that could have held hut circles, but there's no evidence of hut circles. And down at the bottom there's a later farmstead, whether it's medieval or post-medieval, we just don't know. And there's a cairn there, one of these 3 that I mentioned that I think might be a funerary monument. An interesting site, though. One of the most unusual enclosure was this big one, almost in the centre of the image, just above the fank there. That's Halter Valley Head Ruin. by the way, down at the bottom right. This big enclosure, it's got a huge ditch. When we saw it, we thought, this is a henge. The Commission think it's medieval in date. Whether it is or not, I don't know. Whether it'll ever be excavated, I don't know. Here's what Halfway House or Halfland's House, one of the two ruins that we drew up. And we had is that in focus? Sorry. We have one of our members is a retired architect who he has drawn up many upstanding buildings for us. We also had transcriptions of 17th and 16th century documents by the late Elizabeth Watson and also David Welsh. And one of those documents describes a boundary, and I don't know, the prominent peak just to the right of the image from one of these documents is called White Now. The big hill to the right is White Law. Now on White Now there is a hill fort. It's called White Law. But White Law is the big lump to the right, so really there needs to be a wee change in the names of the forts there. The hill fort on what we're now calling White Now wasn't drawn up, but we had a good look at it, and one very windy day, 3 of us went up and we drew it up. Whether it is a fort or not, it's not like the other 4 hill forts in the valley, which have quite a broad summit capable of holding hut circles and other structures. This one is very much different. There's very little top surface. Below it, there's one of numerous scooped settlements, farmsteads really. The effort gone into making these scoops in the hillside must have been incredible. It's cut through by a later dry stone dike. It was drawn up by the Commission in 1938, but we felt there was more to it, so we drew it up. 1 to 100 is what the scale that we normally draw. Here it is again, there's the dike goes through the middle of it, and we've recorded several more smaller features within the scoop settlement. Similarly, Witchcleuch settlement further down the valley, it might have been the old settlement of Elter or related to Kelso Abbey. It's quite an interesting site, very extensive. It may have had a tower house, D. But it's been totally robbed out. We didn't draw the feature in its entirety. We took individual features and drew them up. Here's an aerial photograph courtesy of Richard Carleton. We've found 9 new features within, and we've drawn them all up, and I think 5 features out with the grain. The most important one is at the top right, number 26, from an old document, mentions the building of a mill, and we've actually found the mill. Not much left of it, but we think it may have been a horizontal variety. But it's a lovely big site. Further down, another drone image, courtesy of Richard. Green Hamilton Hill Fort on the right there, and in the centre, bottom centre, this lovely scoop settlement. Again, described by the Commission, but not drawn up, so we drew it up. The Commission described it as a scoop settlement on top of which a D-shaped stele has been imposed. I'm not sure what they mean by that, but and also E, D, and C on the right-hand side of the big scoops we think are wee hut platforms. We did find a previously unrecorded scoop settlement in the lower middle If you look at maps, this is called a quarry. There is a quarry there, and a lot of its waste material has been dumped on top of a scooped settlement, which you see at the bottom here. So that was a nice find last year. Here's a nice view, another nice view of the valley, Green Hamilton, and in front of it, the other hill fort, Burnt Hamilton. There's another hill fort on the big conifer plantation on the right-hand side, at Rings Plantation, but it's completely covered in conifers. Behind is Kirk Yetholm and then Town Yetholm. Again, an old document, an early document, talks about a horse fold on top of Burnt Hamilton. The Commission didn't mention it at all, but we drew it up and we found the fold. We think it's two cross banks adjoining the outer and inner ramparts. Stop stones, or gypsy stones, because tradition has it that the gypsy kings and queens were crowned here. Are they prehistoric, or are they a medieval boundary between Scotland and England? I don't know, but for aficionados of tops of orthostats mirroring the horizon behind is Burnt Hamilton Fort. Looking the other way is White Now Fort, and you've got this reflection of the mirroring of the landscape and the stone. Smaller features included what are called shieling huts. Again, the old documents talk about herds going up to the shieling huts to make sure that the English didn't bring their livestock into Scotland. And we've got this one here, and we drew up. Other small features include what we could call ring ditch cairns. There's another one on the other side of the valley. We made a drawing of it. Not much to see, not much to photograph either, very difficult. And latterly we found what we think is a new settlement below one of the cliffs on the west side of the valley. Here's the largest of the scooped features that we found. We first thought there were just 3 folds with little huts, but I suspected this might be a house. 19th and 20th century didn't escape our attention. This is part of quite an elaborate system to take water to the mills at Yetholm farm, which is just over the ridge, the first ridge there, and Shotton farm around to the right. The dam there, you can see the big stone dam. This was the mill pond. Down to the right there, there's a weir taking the water, diverting the water into the pond. Also had some exciting finds like this concreted water tank, drinking tank. There's 2 coins pressed into the concrete. Couldn't actually date them, but there's also initials of the people who had built the little trough. It seems innocuous, uninteresting, but Jean Hirst, co-director, made inquiries, and we've got a little story about this little trough, and it's more involved than that first site. Other features, remnants of past agricultural activities. And finally, the most important feature of the whole of the Halter Valley, the dry stone dyke is the border between Scotland and England. England is behind with the trees. You can see the turf bank going across between the dry stone dyke and what might be a cairn or a barrow. The dike builders, the stone dike builders, were following the course of the bank, which was the old border. But where the bank kinked, the dry stone dike builders cut right across. So there's forever part of a foreign land. That is now Scotland. Freedom. Okay, thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen.